you. Thank you very much for the invitation. Okay, everybody. First question as usual. Can you see me okay? Can you hear me okay?
Absolutely.
Yes. Okay, excellent. Excellent. So, all right. So as you probably know, right now is not the first time that we go through a hype and enthusiasm and development around metaverses and VR, AR, XR, etc. 20 years ago, there was one. It started around the late 90s. And so we did a lot of development, a lot of talk, and there was a lot of documentation. And so that's what I'm going to talk to you today. And then, see, as you can imagine, then the wave kind of like died. And to start this one where we are right now again. And so we're going to be discussing about what happened, what did it fail, what didn't work, etc., and what we can do, with the new technologies we have today. So let me share my screen. And there you should be seeing my screen, correct?
Correct.
Yes. All right, so that's who I am. Pointer. It's not changing my slides. You don't see the slides changing, right?
No.
Okay, let me start again. Typical.
Take your time, no problem. It's happened. Aliras had this problem this morning. Are you using?
Okay. There. Okay. Let me start again. Share again. It seems like it just froze the screen. Okay, now you see my desktop.
Absolutely. We see your desktop.
You see the slides. Yes. And you see the next one. Okay.
Perfect.
It just froze. It needed to start again.
The winner is Dioselin. Go ahead.
All right. Okay, so metaverse. What is metaverse anyway? As you probably have seen and heard, with everyone that you talk, they will give you a very different definition of the metaverse or metaverses. Some people say there's one, some people say there are many. I'm not going to give you a definition, but what I'm going to talk about, the metaverses of 20 years ago, the consensus about the definition that was around that time is that a metaverse is a virtual world in 3D, it must be in 3D, where you can customize your own avatar and where you can interact with other people and do any kind of activity, as opposed to a game within in an online multiplayer game. Everybody can customize their character. However, it's all about the same objective. In the metaverse, in a metaverse, the idea is that you can use it for work purposes, for play purposes, to work, and that you have a lot of freedom of creating in general. So that's the definition that we're going through this presentation, at least. And so, okay, I'm gonna give you several that existed. So did you know that Google had a metaverse? It lasted, as you can see, only around 5 months. Called Google Lively. Google Chrome had been released that year, but because I guess it was so new, Google Lively only ran in Internet Explorer and in Firefox. They realized that they didn't have the audience that other and the biggest metaverse, Second Life, that I'm sure you heard. They didn't have an audience as big, so they decided to shut it down. By the way, has anybody heard of Google Lively? Do I have the chat here? Or just simply
absolutely.
just fill?
Rupert Brainy, a good friend of mine working at Google, he made a post on that. Many people were surprised about Lively, myself, because I didn't know that they have this virtual world.
Yes. And then again, we all called them metaverses during that time, because the metaverse, the term was coined in 1992, so we've been using it since ever. So Active Worlds is still running. I checked that the latest release was 2021, and this one of the oldest, if not the oldest, metaverse started in launch in 1995. Have you heard of it? Probably not. It's very, even though, you know, it has like what, 30 something years, still not as flexible, you know, and not as rich of the features as, you know, others that you'll see. But hey, it's still running. It has a active user base and all. Vivati. That one also launched in 2008. It was discontinued in 2010. The cool thing about that one is like it had integration with Facebook. So you would go to your wall, or you create a post, and you could create a Vivati world, and then again with your avatar and all, etc. They discontinued because again the audience wasn't really there. The user base at that time was a huge time. So I hope I'm able to, you know, transfer like the energy at that time. It was huge. Metaverses, wow, virtual reality. All of us is going to be in the metaverse or the metaverse in only 2-3 years, or many of us already are. So pretty much what we were going through right now. That was exactly the sentiment. But as you can see, there was a big one, Second Life, and many others that tried but, you know, couldn't, and others that, you know, still running but not really a lot of users right now. There.com, that one was very, very, very big, and also with adolescents, like the kids. That was one of the things that they would go. And that one was closed, was shut down in 2010, and then they reopened in 2012. And they're still running. For this presentation, I went and checked them, and they're still running. And probably, again, many of us haven't even heard of it, especially because from what I see, the documentation, like in the articles recently, these still kind of like geared towards teens, toward young adults. But then again, the user base is not there. I don't see it mentioned actually a lot right now when they talk about metaverse. Well, none of those, right? Open Simulator. This, in my opinion, this is the hero, the unsung hero. It's still running. It still has a user base. From what I see, it's still mostly academic. They had a conference in 2021, so quite active. And Open Simulator is open source, completely open source, the client and the server. And this allows you, just the same way that right now you can install a web server or a mail server at home and just use your computer, the same thing is with Open Simulator. And that's how they create the grid. That's also the term that we used 20 years ago. Is a grid, is all the interconnected worlds that form the metaverse. And so Open Simulator is still there. And in my opinion, this is the kind of things that we should really look for, which is a totally open source, just like internet, that everybody can create. You can run in your computer, etc. So check it out. And Second Life, of course. Second Life, the big one. It launched in 2003. It is still running. That photo actually is a photo of my avatar that I took this week. I was attending a live concert. And so Second Life was the huge one that during the years. And everybody, you know, a lot of metaverses were coming and going. It's because of the popularity of Second Life. And it grew, the user base grew to 1.8 million active users per month, something that no other platform had. And so let me show you, I'm gonna spend a little bit more time just to show you like how big it was. This is a documentary, like it was so popular that this is a documentary. You can see it on Netflix right now. And it was all about, you know, how the new metaverse and the virtual reality worlds and all the impact. Many companies, big companies, actually at that time, if you read the articles, they would tell you like, just like everybody has to have a website, also at the same time, everybody has to have a Second Life presence. So as you can see, Reuters, like if you saw my teaser video, Reuters had a virtual bureau, and they had a full-time reporter, a journalist, reporting only events happening in the metaverse. And then people could see it outside of Second Life and then inside Second Life. Oh yeah, Sheffield, if you say you don't know, you could. There are plenty of articles because that was like a big thing, right? CNET also had, Wire magazine had a virtual world, so every like big player had a presence in Second Life. Media companies were actually doing reporting from there. Other big players, IBM, Nissan, American Apparel, Playboy. Stores like American Apparel, they would do things as the new models of whatever clothing they were launching. They would also have a digital version in Second Life that the avatars, you could go and try it on and everything, and they could get feedback on, That was a very interesting use case. The election, the 2008 election was hugely featured in Second Life. Even ABC did a feature about it. And so there were groups like, Republicans for Obama. They had their own presence and booths. And then, of course, the Democrats, people doing campaigns, register to vote, etc. That was a big presence in Second Life. And so, again, it was big. That's why you hear me talking. Like, it was huge because it was really, really mainstream. And this example is about mental health. So one that this is my personal story. At that time, I was living in Singapore. And at that time, mental health was a big taboo over there. When I asked my colleagues about, hey, where can I find a therapist? They actually told me, shut up, don't even talk about that, don't say anything because it will affect your job. Like, it was that bad. And so I found a therapist in the US Embassy, by the way. I had to sneak out of the office. It was really stressful. Sneak out of the office, make sure nobody was, could look at me on the train, etc. And so it was hard. It was hard to get that. And so in Second Life, there was this island called Support for Healing. And over there, people offering support groups for many different areas. So I found a support group for depression and for anxiety. And that was it would complement my therapy visits and work. And that for me was essential. Like, that was one thing, an example that I couldn't get in the real world. And many people, that were with me in the support group were actually, in similar situations. I conducted work, like I was a professor at that time, so I did research in Second Life. I conducted classes in Second Life, enterprise projects, but the personal aspect was something that was really important for my life. And again, an example of how the metaverse really, is important in your life. It's not just distraction. I wasn't really, escaping from reality. It was actually complementing that. Another interesting tidbit, in one of my groups, there was a transgender woman that she was in the process of transitioning. And so part of what she was doing is she was modifying her avatar to reflect her transition in real life. Because for her, that was something, therapeutic, something that, helped her in her process. So again, that's another example of how an avatar, like having an avatar in metaverse, is actually something that you couldn't get in real life that is actually helping you. And it's, again, not escaping, but complementing. However, of course, at one point it came down and crashed. You probably heard again a lot, Second Life died. Before that, let me see here what people were publishing. The Avastar, by the way, was a Second Life exclusive tabloid, like the Esquire and all. So they publish a lot of, what's going on. And so things that they put copyright, I don't care. There were a lot of cases of people having the digital property stolen. There was a suit, the very first metaverse-related lawsuit. Oops, lawsuit in real life. One of the vendors got property stolen, it was because of a glitch. We don't have much time detail. We can talk about that later if we have time. And so that person in real life hired a lawyer, and the lawyer used copyright laws in order to sue the thieves. But as you can see, like that was a big issue. So Sims play by campers. Yeah, people just go into your land and you stay in there. It's like, hey, get out of my property and all, whatever, get out. And that was, the grifters, we call them. Barbie world is boring. People start thinking like, this is boring. After a while that you're like all excited, flying around, you're high-fiving friends, because it's super cool. After that, it just, it gets boring. Like, okay, what else do you do? And when the Reuters office got closed, one of the things that the reporter said is like, it's just boring. What do you do after that? What do you report on? And then newbies lost in great chaos. Thousands won't return to Second Life. Linden's blame. So it's also the newbie people. There will be a lot of harassment because, of course, as you can imagine, the moment that two computers were connected in the 1960s, harassment started. And so it happened. One thing, for example, that happened to me was that became super popular. I was in one of the islands, and then suddenly somebody started instantiating cubes all around me, to the point that I couldn't escape because they had, they could control the physics. So I couldn't escape at all. And so that is one example where, having the personal boundary that Facebook is talking about just doesn't work. So there are many cases. And the newbies, of course, people like preying on new people. It happened to me when I recently reactivated my account in Second Life. The moment I landed on the introductory place, somebody approached me. It's like, hey, hello, how you doing? How old are you? And so immediately then let me connect you to a friend. And then the friend wanted to, let me teleport you. And I was like, what for? And the guy just became upset and all. So, and then the friend started coming and bumping to me, like boom, onto my avatar. So yes, harassment and existed forever. Cases of sexual harassment like rape happened in Second Life. People were forced to execute animations that were having sex with the other avatar. They were just tricked into that. And that one was reported that, mostly women, that they felt like actually they were raped because they could see the sexual act. So came down and crashed. Second Life actually, boom, came down. The user base just went down to 500,000. However, with the pandemic, because everybody was at home, with the pandemic, it had, a resurgence. And guess how many active users they have right now? They have 1 million users right now. Something that we really haven't heard much, but yes. And so, but of course, the enterprise presence and all is not there, but they're there. And the company just rehired the original creator of Second Life as a consultant. So it's coming. So the next, let's talk about the problems, but in a positive way of how, what is it that we need to solve? And Master of the Metaverse, by the way, that's another example I wanted to show you. Like, we've been talking about this forever. This is a group of an improv group on the web, and they had like a whole program about playing a tabletop game. The actors called them Masters of the Metaverse. So, okay. So what we need to do is make sure that we actually implement or we allow use cases that are sticky instead of cool. What I mean by that is sorry, it's getting distracting because my earbuds is telling me that the battery is running low. So examples of having meetings in Second Life, everybody sitting around a table and looking at it. That's cool. but at the end of the day, it's not really useful. And it, after the coolness factor goes away, you realize that having a video meeting like what we're having right now is actually better, more convenient and all, or flying around, okay, what else? So new type of experiences for a new medium. I think one of the speakers mentioned that, like, if we just simply transfer the current web to then a 3D world, an online world, that's just not going to make it, because we're going to realize, go back to the previous medium, because it's more convenient and we're used to it. An example is when I see these apps that you put your headset, and then you can have a wall there watching Netflix. That's one example that I don't believe that's good. Like, okay, it's cool, but what's the difference there? It's actually better and more convenient rather than having a heavy headset to just go and sit and watch the TV right now. Scaling governance solutions, a big problem during Second Life especially was whenever there would be any kind of problems, people would report it to the company. And so the company had to, like, okay, do we ban this person? Do we suspend the account, etc.? And so instead, just like in the world, it's just give the tools for people to be able to, establish the regulations and the different rules for different areas that are needed. Content interoperability, a big thing was also that, Second Life was, the client was open source and all, but at the end of the day, it's a walled garden. That just like AOL, and I'm using the metaphor of internet, but it's not necessarily metaverse as the extension of internet, what I'm implying. I'm just using metaphors. And so it's just like a new big technology or platform. It's not going to live, it's not going to survive if the developers don't allow it to actually connect with many other platforms that are going to be created. We know that. And I think I have one more, copyright protection. I told you about the case of the copyright lawsuit that we had. So these are boring problems to solve, but these are the ones that we need to solve. Because a lot of us right now are just, it's easy to chase the cool problems. So I'm going to create an avatar system that I can, that I can personalize and etc. But really, we need to make it really survive, is be successful, are these kind of boring problems. And I'm sticking I'm putting my stick on the ground, and this is something that I've been saying, the metaverse revolution starts with mobile platforms. We don't have right now the headsets. A desktop computer is really not something that is going to stick, that is going to be, everywhere we go. So that's where I believe that we should start taking advantage of that and start developing now the solutions while we are waiting, of course, for the VR equipment that is going to be successful, or AR contact lenses, et cetera, et cetera. And so that's it. Thank you very much.
I like it. I like your presentation, and a lot of things I didn't know myself. And just for the public, any question? John is a huge user of Second Life. He was saying that. Maybe he's not online again. John, hi.
Yep. Hi. Yeah, very good presentation, good summary. Thank you. I teach in Second Life. I have been teaching there since 2009, still teaching.
There you go.
And the great thing about that is I have taught in partnership with, I'm based in Dublin in Ireland, but I've worked with the University of Akron. I'm currently working with Çay University in Turkey. And I work with a number of other groups of academics right across the US, University of Colorado, California, and others. So it's an amazing space for building relationships and intercultural exchange that couldn't otherwise happen which I've written about in academic papers. So it's
Exactly.
yeah, I agree with you. The metaverse has been around for a long time.
Yeah.
But it's
Yep.
getting better every day.
Exactly. Yep. Yep. Mm-hmm. That's
Okay.
awesome. So more,
Thank
we
you.
need to hear more people like you, experience like yours. So, I understand the young people of today, they're like, Facebook invented the metaverse. It's not true. Facebook didn't invent it. Facebook
What?
has done nothing
It's not
innovative
Facebook.
so far.
Well done to Mohammed for organising today. It's a tremendous gathering of people. Thank you.
Yeah, they are amazing. Many people think that I'm doing this. They don't understand the real purpose of the meeting we're doing. We do it for ourselves because we like the speakers first. We go to the on the web. We check the video, the talks, and we pray to have them one day in our event because you see, Jocelyn, I learned now a lot of things in 15 minutes like that. No, I agree. Thank you very much, John, and also Jocelyn. I
Thank you.
greatly appreciate your participation.